like, I'm going to be quite frank and honest. We are the Conservative Party, and Pierre and MP Rempel are treading a very dangerous line of what I'm going to call a dog whistle of racism.
Well, it seems like the Conservatives have really kicked the hornet's nest with yesterday's announcement on the temporary foreign workers. So we're going to be taking a look at some of the political pundits and their take on this. So without further ado, let's dive into the news. Now, yesterday we did a whole video talking about the announcement from the Conservatives in regards to the ending of the temporary foreign worker program. And today we're going to be looking at some of the responses and the reaction in the mainstream media to that press conference. Now, as you can see from the opener, there was a little bit of accusations, some insinuations on what the Conservatives were actually getting at. And even Vashi Kapellos falls in under that when she says that the Conservatives seem to be blaming all of the problems on temporary foreign workers, which the Conservative strategist has to then correct her on.
Yeah, I think, Sebastian, a couple of things as I was listening to the press conference today and Ms. Rempel-Garner and all of you that come to mind. I do think that the former Liberal government was very late to the issue of immigration policy changes, kind of like was forced there. And we're still seeing some impacts of that. So they remain somewhat vulnerable on it. And I also think that they haven't talked enough about how hard it is for youth to find a job and how high that unemployment rate is. At the same time, it's like a fine line for the Conservatives to walk to blame all of these issues on immigration. I think there is no hard evidence to back that up in its entirety. Is it part of the problem? Sure. Is it the whole problem? No one has shown me any proof that it is.
Well, first of all, I would say I don't think anyone is suggesting that Ms. Rempel-Garner or Pierre Poilievre are blaming entirely on this. It is, though, a significant problem and a significant chunk of the issue. Look, just before the break, Sharon said, it's only been 6 months. You know, let's not assess the outcomes. But in those 6 months, when Prime Minister Carney was Prime Minister, in fact, the Liberals had allowed 105,000 temporary foreign worker permits. That is a staggering number. So in those 6 months, he took action to employ temporary foreign workers and put Canadians in the backseat. I think the example cited by our immigration critic about companies across the country who are requesting the assistance of temporary foreign workers for really entry-level jobs is concerning, at most generous, and it begs the question of why this program is even in existence when it is very clearly hurting the population that is struggling the most. I will also point out that while the boomers of Mr. Carney's coalition put their elbows together in support of him, it is the young Canadians who had been suffering so greatly after 10 years of Liberal rule who have been really on the outs, who are feeling completely disconnected from society, disconnected from the workforce. Those are the people that are increasingly supporting Mr. Poilievre and common sense policies like this. Let's give those Canadians a leg up. Let's let them have a fair kick at the can when it comes to starting their career. And I think that's really what this policy is about. And I think it'll resonate very strongly with those that it affects so closely.
Now, in my opinion, if anybody's saying the Conservatives are completely blaming this whole situation on temporary foreign workers, I feel like they're just simply being disingenuous and not actually critically thinking about what we're talking about here. Are they a contributor to the issue? 100%. Are they the main driver of it? No, there are other limiting factors to this whole situation of youth unemployment, unaffordability, all that stuff. And this has been the trend for the past decade. And when you let your emotions take over, you start to sound like the Liberal pundit that's about to be played. And she even admits that there are other issues which are completely tied to the Liberal Party. Take a listen.
To that interview and watching that interview that you did with MP Rempel, quite frankly, was infuriating, because if you want to have a conversation about the fact that we have an issue with immigration. We do, not because they're immigrants and they're coming in and taking away. It's because our society and our system hasn't kept up. We don't have enough housing. We don't have enough resource put in place to help everybody. So let's have that conversation.
Yes, let's have that conversation. That's what the conservatives have been trying to push for the past 10 years now, especially in the last 4 to 5, where they've been hammering on crime, chaos, unaffordability, housing, all these issues, the healthcare system. Like, this is what they've been trying to point out. And now you say, let's have this conversation. It's like 10 years too late. But when she continues, she starts to go on a weird tangent and uses a very bad example in regards to how people are framing this whole situation.
But to say it's foreign workers that are taking away jobs from Canadians and the solution is youth, to me is simplistic, it's nonsense, and honestly, it's like, let's talk about taxi drivers, for example, in major cities. There is a reason why taxi drivers look like my skin tone, because unfortunately there are people who come to this country who are willing to do jobs that we're not going to get other people to do. So if you think that students are going to do that, I think it's completely a sledgehammer policy they're trying to put into place. There's a demographic, there is regional considerations, and students are not going to solve it. And quite frankly, like, I found it offensive because what they're doing is they're tapping into the people, and I'm not saying all conservatives, but Pierre Poilievre has tapped into a base of conservative voters who have made extremely racist comments against immigrants. We saw that when we saw universities and colleges abusing foreign student attendance in their schools, and we see it online. And what they're doing right now is race baiting, and I find it, quite frankly, offensive.
Now, first of all, I doubt a large number of youth even know what a taxi is anymore. It's all Uber, Lyft, all those kind of rideshare programs. But obviously, nobody's looking to hire a student for a taxi driver position. Second of all, again, this is all just emotional race baiting stuff, saying that she's definitely insinuating white conservatives have a problem with brown people, which that's not the case. But when you do see a huge increase coming from one specific country and all of the low-skilled jobs are taken by those specific individuals, then there seems to be a bit of a correlation. It doesn't mean it's a cause for it, but definitely a correlation. And this is something that was forewarned to the Liberal government back in 2016 about changing the immigration, opening it up to low-skilled workers, moving away from our points-based system, which only brought in the best of the best in that aspect. And they were warned about it and just ignored it. But this is from 2024 during one of the committee hearings.
Since 1967, we've relied on a point system that prioritizes skilled workers. The consequence is that the wage suppression effects of immigration are concentrated at the top end of the income distribution, so that immigration tends to, if anything, reduce, not exacerbate economic inequality. In Canada, lower income citizens don't see immigrants as competition, but they see them instead as doctors and professors and scientists who make their lives better. But sadly, what we've seen in recent years is a dismantling of Canada's skilled immigration system, as policymakers have become obsessed with plugging holes in lower skilled labor markets. In March 2016, I received an email from Immigration Minister John McCallum requesting feedback on 6 policy questions. A group of 9 academic economists met with the minister 3 weeks later to discuss his questions, and on May 10th, we sent him a 32-page written response. I think it's safe to say the feedback was never read by any of Mr. McCallum's 3 successors. In rereading the feedback, there's little doubt in my mind that the mess the system finds itself in now could have been avoided if our recommendations had not been ignored. First, we advised against introducing a low-skill component to the express entry system, which is precisely what category-based selection has done. Second, we warned the government to proceed carefully in expanding foreign student admissions in two-year college programs that are focused on selling immigration, not education. For the past decade, Canadian voters have been told by their federal government that significant increases in immigration levels would be a tonic for Canada's sluggish economic growth. For academic economists who study immigration and understand how economies work, this narrative might have felt good, but it wasn't true. We warned the government, but nobody likes a cold shower, and we were ignored. We are seeing the consequences now.
Indeed, we are, and this is why the Conservatives are making this announcement. But it's not just the Conservatives who are noticing this. This tweet is now recirculating ever since yesterday's press conference. Justin Trudeau himself addressed the Conservative Party back in 2014 and wrote, "Temporary foreign workers program lowers Canadian wages and exploits vulnerable people. It needs to be fixed." So even the Liberal leader, or former Liberal leader himself, acknowledged this. Yet now in 2025, if a Conservative says this type of thing, it's racism. It's a dog whistle. It's us attacking foreigners or brown people. Like, do you listen to the delusion here? And on CBC, they actually started to attack the Conservatives. For the NDP panelist did. But before we get to him, I want you to see this interaction with Michelle Rempel-Garner and David Cochrane.
Some of the examples that you pointed to, Canadians are welcome to apply for those. It says it right there on the job posting. The salaries that some of you pointed to were like $35 an hour, $36 an hour. That's a $75,000 a year job. I mean, why wouldn't Canadians apply for those? And because this is what the CFIB and others say, is that they're just not getting people to apply for these things.
I don't buy that. I think that's bunk. The fact is, even your network has reported extensively on the abuse in that program. There's a lot of workers, temporary foreign workers, who have been abused by these programs. It essentially amounts to indentured labor. We've heard about unscrupulous employers who are essentially taking kickbacks, right, from some of these employees. So, I don't buy the argument that Canadians aren't taking these jobs, especially when we see stories of kids putting in hundreds of resumes and not getting those calls back.
But, where's the clear data point linking these kids applying for jobs and it going to temporary foreign workers? Because if you listen, Tim Hortons, for example, who you singled out today, they issued a statement saying only 5% of the workforce.
5% too much, though.
Okay, but in certain parts of the country, like, I remember being in Labrador and seeing temporary foreign workers working in the fast food service there, because the wages that the local kids can make in other areas, they're not going to go work in fast food. So there's a problem with a consistent labor pool. There is a gap in the labor market, is there not?
Now, first of all, I don't know when the last time David Cochrane's walked into a Tim Hortons, but it's pretty obvious what's going on there. And secondly, if you watched yesterday's video, Michelle Rempel-Garner, I showed tons of examples that her and her team have found of places like Baskin Robbins, Canadian Tire, other fast food places like Subway, offering jobs at like $35, $34 to $42 ranges per hour. There's no way in hell you're telling me that young kids or students or anybody who's just trying to find a first job is going to be turning that down because it's a fast food job. When I first started my job, my very first job was at a retirement home where I was working for $18 an hour, where my friends were getting like $13 an hour at their job. That was high for me, and I would wake up at 4:30 in the morning, ride my bike for like 20 minutes till I got to the retirement home, to start in the kitchen because I was making breakfast for the elderly. I would be running the dishwasher, cooking, serving them, doing whatever I could, because I finally got a job and I was able to make more money than other people and start to save. $34, $35 an hour? I would sign up right now at McDonald's if that was the case. Hell, that posting of Canadian Tire making $42 an hour, that's currently more money than I make right now at Canada Post. So you can't tell me that there's nobody that can fill these positions. It's very, very hard for me to believe. But if you were to listen to the CBC, they would tell you that the temporary foreign workers only go for the jobs that nobody really wants.
Pierre Poilievre says temporary foreign workers are taking jobs from Canadians.
They compete with working class and young people that ultimately drive down wages and drive away jobs.
So now the Conservative leader is calling on the Liberal government to scrap the TFW program.
The Liberals have to answer. Why is it that they're shutting our own youth out of jobs?
The TFW program, which allows employers to hire foreigners if they can show a lack of Canadian applicants, expanded during the pandemic. But since then, youth unemployment has climbed, and Conservatives say that ending the program would force employers to replace TFWs with young Canadians. Employers say the program can be adjusted.
But to suggest that the program itself be permanently scrapped is just ridiculous. There are thousands and thousands of communities where there just are no entry-level people available to work.
This migrant worker asked not to be identified for fear of losing her livelihood. She says the cancellation of the program would affect not only her family and the fish plant that employs her, but the whole Maritimes community where she's lived for years. Migrant rights groups say TFWs don't normally compete for the same jobs as students.
The vast majority of TFWs are in agriculture and fish processing and trucking, and these are not sectors where that traditionally hire youth or summer students.
I think they hire them because they can pay them less. And it's that simple.
You need to pay about $10,000 in fees just to get one position. You need to pay for that person's return airfare to and from their home country. You need to help pay for and find their accommodations.
The number of temporary visa holders in Canada is declining and should decline more as new rules and restrictions take effect. But the Conservative Party is laying down a marker that it wants to go further, even if it risks alienating some supporters in the small business sector.
I don't know if you noticed, but in that video, not only did they have a migrant, they had a migrant rights activist, a pro temporary foreign worker program advocate. They had pro business advocacy groups, and all of this on the backdrop of one person going against it, which is Pierre Poilievre. So clearly the CBC is trying to paint him as the bad guy here, as they tend to always do. But when we go back to David Cochrane and the panel, this is what I was talking about in regards to the NDP. He acknowledges that there's a problem with the temporary foreign worker program, but then says, well, why didn't Pierre Poilievre do anything when in the past 32 years of government, the Conservatives have only been in power for about 9, and prior to Justin Trudeau, as you heard from the guy earlier, things weren't the way that they are now. It's changed.
Is this a legitimate policy critique? Is this an attempt to reach young Canadian voters? What do you make of this position from the Conservatives and what it might mean for the business community if it goes away?
Yeah, well, I always suspect when Pierre Poilievre talks about caring about young people and employment and workers, because I don't buy it. Temporary foreign workers program is fundamentally flawed. In fact, a UN review of the program called it a breeding ground for contemporary forms of slavery. It is deeply flawed, and it's too bad that Pierre Poilievre was never in government in his 30 or 25 plus years in politics, because he could have done something to do it. Because if it's driving down wages and cutting out young people from work today, then it certainly was when he was in the Stephen Harper government back in the 2000s. So it's great that he's come to the dance, but he's a little late, and the last song has already been played.
This guy is just so disingenuous when he's full on admitting there's a problem with the program. He cites a study saying that it's essentially slavery. We have indentured servants through this temporary foreign program, worker program, and still puts the blame on Pierre Poilievre when prior to the Justin Trudeau government, it seemed like we had a pretty good system. As you heard, we were allowing in the high-skilled individuals, not the low-skilled ones. Yet, Conservatives bad, Conservatives racist, they hate brown people. That's the main gist that I'm getting from this. But as always, I'd love to hear from you guys. What do you guys take from all this? What do you believe what these guys are saying? Are you on Pierre Poilievre's side? Let me know in the comment section below. If you can, like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. It really does help the channel grow. And as always, I will catch you guys on the next one. Thanks so much.